Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the channel where we discuss idea prompts to get your creative juices flowing, and also we discuss the backstories of famous novels, short stories, television shows, and movies. Today, we're doing both an idea prompt and a backstory, so to speak. I remember watching an interview where Ray Bradbury mentioned whenever he was about to start on a short story, he would basically just pull a title out of a little list of titles that he had, and he would just see where that title would take him. The very first one being The Lake, I believe that's the very first short story he said he ever wrote about an incident at a lake. This next one, The Small Assassin, I believe that's about a little baby or a little kid who tries to murder its parents. Okay. The Velt, that's another short story. The Screaming Woman is a interesting one for me. It's one of my favorites. He's writing about a little girl who hears a woman screaming in a ditch. She's been buried alive, basically. And the story consists of the little girl trying to convince her parents that she's not making things up, that there actually is a screaming woman who's been buried somewhere. The Murderer, kind of self explanatory. Banshee, um, it could be about the mythological creature, or it could just be about a very loud person. I remember reading a story idea. It wasn't from Ray Bradbury. I think it was from Robert Bloch or some other famous writer. He was giving a class to a bunch of students, and he mentioned how there was this young girl who was doing her very first babysitting job. Um, and in order to create conflict, he talks about how the baby or the kid won't act right. It won't stop crying no matter what she does. And how, once the story's over, she basically gets apologies from the parents or paid a little extra from the parents or whatever, and whether or not she even wants to continue babysitting ever again. And one of the kids in the class says, well, I can still babysit, just not that kid. And the writer even mentioned how the little girl, after the bad incident, maybe it's a racket that she runs where she pretty much always says the baby misbehaved so she can get extra tips or extra money out of the parents. So, that's an idea. The Ravine, that's my favorite short story from Ray Bradbury. He's talking about a woman who has an interaction with a serial killer after having found a body in a ravine earlier that day. So, pretty busy and exciting day for her. Over here, we have Stephen King, and he has something similar where he has basically just some really, really simple titles, but some pretty interesting stories out of them. The Boogeyman, that's one of my favorite short stories by him. The Raft is a short story that was made into a live action feature for the movie Creepshow. It was one of the three stories that they did. Cujo, you could just make it about, just say the dog or mention the dog's name. It. Um, we know what Stephen King, of course, did with that two-word title or two-letter title, but there's also, I think, John Carpenter took a short story called Whose Goes There and just wrote The Thing out of it, which is my favorite horror story. Misery, um, you can write about a date. This is November 22nd, 1963, I think was the date that JFK was assassinated. Rage was a novella. Stephen King eventually took it off the shelves because it was about a school shooting, and a lot of these school shooters had a copy of Rage in their lockers. And finally, Cell. So I hope that these prompts, sparked some creative juices flowing in your head and got your writing started or can get your writing started. And until next time, happy writing.